Beautiful blouses, tops and shirts you'll wear on repeat. Chic Outfit Ideas 2026. Welcome to Fashion Trend Updates, where I love breaking down what's actually worth wearing and what's just hype. Today, I'm diving into beautiful blouses, tops, and shirts you'll find yourself reaching for again and again in 2026. I think this season is less about loud statements and more about pieces that quietly elevate your entire wardrobe. There's something intriguing about clothing that feels effortless but still turns heads, and that's exactly what we're exploring. The shift toward effortless elegance. I think one of the biggest changes I've noticed is how fashion is leaning into simplicity that feels luxurious. In my experience, the most wearable pieces are the ones that don't try too hard yet still look intentional. What I find interesting is that unlike past seasons filled with bold chaos, this year feels more refined and grounded. It's almost like fashion is asking us to slow down and appreciate quality over quantity. Have you noticed how calm, clean styles suddenly feel more powerful? The rise of soft tailoring in tops. I think soft tailoring is redefining how we see blouses this year. Instead of stiff, overly structured shirts, I'm seeing relaxed silhouettes that still hold shape beautifully. In my experience, these pieces work because they balance comfort and polish effortlessly. What I find interesting is how they make you look put together without feeling restricted. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything about how an outfit feels. Sheer fabrics that feel sophisticated. I think sheer fabrics are finally being done right this season. Instead of feeling overly revealing, they now feel layered, intentional, and elegant. In my experience, when styled correctly, sheer blouses add depth rather than distraction. What I find interesting is how they create a sense of mystery without trying too hard. Unlike older trends, this version feels mature and wearable. The return of romantic details. I think romantic details like ruffles, lace, and soft draping are making a quiet comeback. In my experience, these elements work best when they're subtle rather than overwhelming. What I find interesting is how they soften an outfit without making it look overly feminine. There's a balance here that feels modern, not costume-like. Isn't it surprising how something delicate can still feel strong? Neutral tones that do all the work. I think neutral tones are dominating for a reason. In my experience, shades like cream, beige, and soft gray make styling incredibly easy. What I find interesting is how these colors allow the cut and fabric to shine instead of competing for attention. Unlike bold prints, neutrals feel timeless and versatile. They're the kind of pieces you never get tired of wearing. Statement sleeves that aren't overwhelming. I think sleeves are becoming the new focal point, but in a much more refined way. In my experience, subtle volume or unique cuts add personality without overpowering the outfit. What I find interesting is how designers are scaling back drama, while still keeping things interesting. It's a more thoughtful approach to statement design. Would you go for bold sleeves or keep things minimal? The power of crisp white shirts. I think a crisp white shirt will always be a wardrobe essential. In my experience, it's one of the few pieces that works in almost every situation. What I find interesting is how small details like fabric texture or fit completely change its impact. Unlike trend-driven items, this is something that never loses relevance. It's simplicity at its best. Silk and satin for everyday wear. I think silk and satin are no longer reserved for special occasions. In my experience, these fabrics instantly elevate even the simplest outfit. What I find interesting is how they bring a sense of luxury into everyday dressing. Unlike heavier materials, they move beautifully and feel light on the skin. It's comfort and elegance combined. Relaxed fits that still look polished. I think relaxed fits are redefining modern chic. In my experience, oversized doesn't have to mean sloppy if it's styled correctly. What I find interesting is how proportion plays such a big role in making these looks work. Unlike tight-fitting styles, these pieces allow for movement and ease. It's fashion that adapts to your lifestyle. Minimal prints that make a statement. I think prints are becoming more subtle but more intentional. In my experience, small patterns or tonal designs feel more wearable than loud graphics. What I find interesting is how these prints add interest without overwhelming the outfit. Unlike bold prints, they blend seamlessly into your wardrobe. It's a quieter kind of confidence. Layering as a style strategy. I think layering is one of the smartest ways to style tops this season. In my experience, combining textures and lengths creates depth without needing more pieces. What I find interesting is how layering can transform even the simplest blouse. Unlike standalone outfits, layered looks feel more dynamic. It's all about building dimension. The comeback of structured corset tops. I think corset-inspired tops are making a refined return. In my experience, they work best when paired with softer elements to balance the look. What I find interesting is how they add structure without feeling restrictive. Unlike traditional corsets, these are designed for comfort. It's a modern twist on a classic silhouette. Earthy tones that feel grounded. I think earthy tones like olive, rust, and sand are becoming essentials. In my experience, these colors feel warm and easy to style across seasons. What I find interesting is how they bring a natural, calming vibe to outfits. Unlike brighter shades, they feel more grounded and versatile. They're quietly powerful. Texture over excess decoration. I think texture is replacing heavy embellishments this year. In my experience, fabrics like linen, ribbed knits, and subtle pleats add interest without clutter. What I find interesting is how texture creates depth in a more refined way. Unlike flashy details, it feels intentional and sophisticated. It's less about decoration and more about design. Crop silhouettes done right. I think crop tops are evolving into something more polished. In my experience, they work best when balanced with high-waisted pieces. What I find interesting is how they can feel elegant rather than casual when styled thoughtfully. Unlike past trends, this version feels more mature. It's all about proportion. Mixing casual and elevated pieces. I think one of the most exciting trends is mixing casual with elevated styles. In my experience, pairing a luxe blouse with simple denim creates a perfect balance. What I find interesting is how contrast makes outfits more interesting. Unlike fully formal looks, this approach feels more wearable. It's fashion that fits real life. Why less really is more in 2026? I think the biggest takeaway this season is that less truly is more. In my experience, a few well-chosen pieces outperform a closet full of trends. What I find interesting is how simplicity allows personal style to shine through. Unlike overcomplicated outfits, these looks feel authentic. It's about confidence, not excess. Finding your personal style within trends. I think trends are only valuable if they align with your personal style. In my experience, forcing trends never feels right, no matter how popular they are. What I find interesting is how the best outfits always feel natural and effortless. Unlike copying looks exactly, adapting them makes them truly yours. Isn't that what style is really about? Final thoughts and your turn. I think 2026 is shaping up to be one of the most wearable and refined fashion seasons in years. In my experience, the best blouses, tops, and shirts are the ones you don't have to think twice about wearing. What I find interesting is how simplicity is finally being appreciated as a form of luxury. So, which trend are you most excited to try this season? Don't forget to subscribe to Fashion Trend Updates for more style insights and inspiration.